Happy New Year! Welcome back to the Heron Outlet. We are so excited that you are with us. He is Austin Robillard. She is Alex Winley. I am Ian Hest. And guys, it's good to see you all again. It really brings a warmth and a smile to my face to see my colleagues, my friends again, as we prepare for a 2022 MLS season, a 2022 Inter Miami season. And a lot has happened in our sort of winter break. The transfer window is open. There are players coming, there are players going. We're going to spend a lot of time on that in this episode. Let's start with the big one of Inter Miami's three designated players, Rodolfo Pizarro, with rumors going back to Mexico, and Monterrey with a loan. He has 1 year left on his contract and an option to buy at the end. So Alex, I'm going to throw the first question to you. I guess I don't even know if this is a question, but let's just get started with what we know and what we don't know at this point.
So, right, Rodolfo, he's on his way back to Mexico. He had his medical earlier today. The move should get announced either today or tomorrow. It is a loan with an option to buy. Monterrey will be covering his salary. Yeah, it's a move that Miami needed to make. We all saw at the end of last season just a drama between him and Higuain, and so it was pretty inevitable that one of the three DPs were going to leave. And since Pizarro's younger, he has a higher upside. He was the one who was the odd man out. So it's a good deal for Miami. It's a good deal for Pizarro. He wants to get back into the national Mexican national team fold before the World Cup later this year. So that will give him a chance to get in front of Tata Martino and his staff and their eyes to see whether or not he's I guess worthy enough to get back into that national team fold. He'll be playing in Mexico, so there's going to be plenty of eyes on him. As for Inter Miami, that should open a DP spot. You loan out a DP. The rules do say that technically a DP spot is supposed to open. It remains to be seen if Inter Miami will bring another DP. They could very well just wait until next season, where they'll have, I believe, three open DP spots, maybe two. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's a good deal all around. It's a safe bet. There's a lot of loans with options to buy going around because of COVID and whatnot. So yeah, it's a good deal done by Chris Henderson, and it was something that Inter Miami needed to get done. And yeah, it'll give them cap flexibility, roster flexibility going into these first year sanctions.
I think we all knew it was coming at some point. It was a move waiting to happen, and you could have said that it was a move that was meant to happen even before just this transfer window. It's just been a long time coming for Pizarro. It was a failed experiment, which is unfortunate because when Pizarro first came to Miami, before Higuain was here and any other big names were here, it was going to be the Pizarro Alonso show. They were supposed to make that magic that they had with the Concacaf Champions League in Monterrey. Now Pizarro's style just didn't translate here. The system never translated here, and he'll be going back to Mexico, like Alex mentioned, trying to get back into that Mexican national team squad as a frequent player. As you know, there's been a couple times where he's been in the squad, not in the squad, depending on the camps, and I think he's going to want to be in that squad come early December, late November of this season of this year. Actually, it's 2022. Happy New Year. So yeah, it's a good move for him. It's unfortunate it didn't work out at Miami, but I think that for Pizarro, it's a good move. For Miami, it's a good move because, like you said, Alex, that DP slot has opened up. Which he won't probably come back, and if that's open for the next couple of seasons, even with the sanctions, it doesn't really matter because DP money doesn't work with what the sanctions are doing. So now Miami can explore different options, find maybe a true creator at the top of the midfield to bolster that attack, something that they've lacked since their inception. And good luck to Pizarro. Good luck at Monterrey, and he'll have to do it without Diego Alonso. So we'll see how that goes. But I wish him the best of luck. I know that things didn't turn out the way they should have here, and it got a little nasty towards the end with all of his tweets and everything. But listen, it was a failed experiment, and if the club can move on in this simple manner, then that would be the best thing for all parties.
So let's talk about that. You say, Austin, a failed experiment, and I go back to like early 2020, which feels like an entire lifetime ago. This is pre-pandemic now, and he scores in the LAFC game, or DC,
DC,
DC.
DC. Yep.
Sorry, and then the world, comes to a halt, and everything changes. Um, is it fair to say a failed experiment? Because I look at this guy as the first one. And we're going to get to Lewis Morgan in a sec, who really, I mean, started every single match in the club's history. So I, I got sort of some flack for calling him the heart and soul of the club, but I think that that's a fair description of him. But Pizarro was the first real guy, and so when we say failed experiment, I mean, he did last 2 years. I don't know if necessarily it's a failed experiment. And there are MLS clubs that don't fill all 3DP spots. So I guess my question is in two parts. First, do you see it as very much a failed experiment? Which I don't know if I would necessarily agree with. I just don't think that it necessarily prolongated as long as they would have hoped. He only had 1 year left on his deal. But secondly, do you even bother filling out that third designated player role, that designated player spot, given the sanctions?
Yeah, I would say it's not necessarily just a failed experiment on Rodolfo Pizarro's, just Rodolfo Pizarro. It was a failed experiment. The 2020 team was a failed experiment. Diego Alonso was a failed experiment. Pizarro was a failed experiment. All that.
Even though they made the playoffs, let's
Right,
remember, even though they
that's
made the
true.
playoffs.
And they just didn't get to extend. They didn't, or they chose not to extend Alonso past that. And we know what happened with the front office in that time. And I think that a lot of that just falls on Pizarro because he's the last one really remaining of the high profile names, whether it's front office, head coach, or players. Pizarro is the one last standing guy. And when you move into this new regime that we had in 2021, he was the guy that just couldn't ever bring it together. He was benched. He had, there was the rumors about the locker room stuff and everything like that, and his play wasn't always good. Although he somehow was named an MLS All Star, the first in Miami's history. Um, I don't think it's a failed experiment just on Pizarro. It's just how he was brought in with everything he was brought in. That was all supposed to work together. That culmination of front office and head coach and player, star player, was all supposed to work together. They were going to get him a star number 9 up top, everything like that. But then towards the end, it didn't work. So that's what I would say. And as for filling in the DP spot, I mean, look, I think Miami wants to be competitive, and it's not that every team that fills out all 3 DP spots are competitive, right? There's not, that doesn't always happen in MLS. You don't have to fill out all your DP spots to be competitive in MLS. However, I think Miami does need that because at the moment, I don't think since their inception, they have not had the depth to put out quality starting 11s time and time and time again. And I think that they are going to need some star player, whether it's a number 10, whether it's another striker, because we don't know really what's going on with Higuain in terms of a consistent goal scorer and playmaker too, especially without his brother going to be on the team after he retired. I think that you do need to bring somebody in that's going to make some magic down here in Miami.
Yeah, I agree. I think last year we saw Higuain play his best with Federico, partly because he's his brother, but also because Federico is more of a creative type of central midfielder that could, play those through balls and play those passes to number 9 like Higuain. So, looking at Miami's roster now, they don't necessarily have that X factor yet, and maybe bringing in another DP. There have been some rumors about other players coming in, but like the transfer market is very fluid, and deals collapse and whatnot. But I do think that if Inter Miami still want to be competitive, they're going to need to bring in either within the league or from outside an X factor at that number 10 spot, or they can switch formation to a 4-3-3, bring in another central midfielder that's a bit more creative. We don't know what exactly Chris Henderson's going to do, but I agree with Austin that they should look into bringing another designated player to, you know, re- be that X factor because Pizarro he wasn't that creative type, and we saw on the pitch that how many times did him and Higuain just clash heads because Pizarro maybe wanted to drop deep when Higuain wanted to go forward and vice versa. So this next spot it'll be a it'll be a guy that 3-4 years down the line you can really build upon. Look at Gregory last season. I believe they signed him to a 5-year contract. He's going to stay not only the duration of the sanctions, but into the future where they can basically have a real good spine of the squad. So, and we see these recent signings, which we will touch on later, that they're definitely similar in type. They, last season it remind me, injuries were such an issue. They barely had any depth. So we see guys like Mo Adams and Ariel Lassiter and, Bryce Duke coming in. These are guys that can give you significant minutes, but, can also come off the bench when needed to. So, but if Inter Miami want to be competitive, they should, certainly look into bringing a DP. Will they do it? That's up to Chris Henderson, the front office. I know there's 2 weeks till training camp starts, and I know that Neville probably wants all his players in, at the first whistle. So, yeah, it's good. These next couple of weeks are definitely going to be hectic, and all those questions that we raised will be answered within the next couple weeks or two.
Yeah, I guess I hesitate to think, given the cap situation and given the sanctions that are upcoming, I guess I hesitate to wonder if you even just go ahead. You have one more year of Matuidi, you have one more year of Higuain, and I don't know if it's necessary to sort of start, maybe just start to bridge that gap and think about what the future is going to hold. This is obviously going to be the toughest of the 2 years that they're going to deal with. So I guess I just wonder if you even wind up worrying about filling that third designated player spot after this. Let's talk about the sanctions. Inter Miami earlier in the winter traded Lewis Morgan, started every match for the club, fan favorite, was in the supporter section every game, and really was a heart and soul guy of the club. Traded to New York Red Bulls for $1.2 million in allocation money, which, if you're unfamiliar with MLS and TAM GAM allocation money trades, that's a heck of a haul, especially for a guy that regressed in 2021 compared to what he was in 2020. So, a very good job, in my opinion, from the front office to be able to get that sort of level. I think, you know, sources told me earlier in the offseason that they maybe even taken half of that. So I think that the fact that they got that for him is really impressive, and very exciting that they were able to get what they did for him. Let's talk about Lewis's impact on the first 2 years of Inter Miami. Obviously, we wish him the best. Not too much of the best at New York Red Bulls. Don't go beating us up. But a wonderful guy. Always a pleasure to talk to. Really, had his troubles figuring out that right wing back in 2021. Had that trouble, but was always a team player, always willing to do what it was. And let's just give him the credit that he deserves, and pay homage. I don't want to make this like his funeral or anything like that, but whatever his time at Inter Miami was, and what he meant to the start of this club, because it was truly special.
Yeah, it was really special. I mean, he not single handedly got this team to the playoffs in their inaugural year, but he was the key factor in getting this team to the playoffs. He was the team MVP in 2020. And when you have a player like that who can make such a big impact, somebody who didn't, nobody really expected to have that kind of impact when he first came in, to get this team to the playoffs, the good memories that he had in 2020, they'll never be forgotten. That's for sure, that they're always going to be a huge part of this club. And as for 2021, it was evident that he did regress, as a player, but he regressed in his position as well. He was dropping down more as a defender, but what didn't go unnoticed was how much effort and passion he put into every single match that he played. And even though he wasn't up to the same quality as he was in 2020, fans noticed how much of an effort this guy put in, week in and week out. And I say week in and week out, and I don't hold that lightly, because like you said, Ian, he has started every single match in the club's history. and that is not something to be taken lightly. I don't know if there is a player in MLS who has started for an expansion team for every single game in their first 2 seasons. That's probably a number that you'd have to look up. It would be tough, and it was over 50 games or around 50 games, if I'm not mistaken, and even that number alone is a lot to start in a row. So, for Lewis Morgan, unfortunately, this trade had to happen. It's to get that allocation money back from the sanctions, but I think the trade gives Lewis a lot of respect to it's showing a lot of respect to Lewis because this was the guy that Miami could actually get money for that was on the roster, especially within the league. I know there was probably a lot of interest for him within the league, and this trade shows that he was a big money player. He was the guy that was worth the most on this roster in the first 2 seasons, and I mean wishing him all the best. Always a class act on and off the field. I'll always hold in memory in Nashville after the 3-0 playoff loss when we lost. He walked over to the fans, took off his jersey, gave it to a little girl, and I've never seen someone smile so much in my entire life. And she held that jersey so near and dear to her the entire time. I'll never forget that. But yeah, Lewis Morgan, thanks for everything. And I can say that for every single fan of this club and analyst and anybody who's just around the club, everybody would love to say thank you. I'm sure they already have, and all the best in New York.
And Alex, one of the things that like really impressed me was that the club decided to send him to New York, and they had possibly rumored better options elsewhere that we've talked about, and the fact that they wanted to put him in a situation where he would be still in the limelight, still in that big market environment, so that he can succeed, so that he can go on with his career, and so that he can have the best for what he wants to do in the future. There are, let's make no qualms about it, there are big markets and small markets in the United States, and New York is as big as it gets. So to put him in a situation like that, when I think that there were other opportunities where he could have gone to other places, and the club still goes and says thank you, not only for everything that you did, but also for what we want to see you do in the future as a representation of these first 2 years, I think is admirable of the club and also of Lewis.
Yeah, I think him going to the Red Bulls will, do him a lot of good. It's probably better suited to their system than he would with Phil Neville. They play a really high tempo, high press style. They love to get in behind. They love to, disrupt the opposition back line. Try to pounce on those loose balls. So, and that's basically Lewis's game. He lives off speed. He lives off of, you know, uh, taking it off the dribble and beating his defender. So putting him in that situation will not only help him thrive, but maybe get back into the national team discussions as well. So, like you said, there were probably better offers at smaller markets that they could have sent Lewis to for more money, but the fact that they sent him to New York, which in a good situation, it shows that you know, Inter Miami, they do care about their players and their future in that regard, even though if they're not still with the team, they want to put them in good situations where they can maybe succeed, maybe not too much, maybe not against Inter Miami, but where they can still succeed and have a good career. I will say that um trading Lewis Morgan, I've seen some fans complain about why did they trade their best winger, all that good stuff. But financially, Inter Miami physically could not keep Lewis on this roster because he was just making too much money. It wasn't some sort of bait and switch where oh, they re-signed him so you guys can renew your season tickets in order to have good players that you like on here. No, it was not that. Financially, because of the sanctions and due to Lewis's his transition into a TAM player, Miami could not financially keep him on this roster, which is unfortunate. This wasn't some giant plot to break the fans' hearts. It's simply a money issue. If the sanctions weren't there, Lewis would probably still be on this roster. So look at Julian Carranza, who we'll touch on later. Julian was traded because he just took up too much money, and we'll touch on him and Leandro Gonzalez Perez
Well,
later.
let's talk about it,
Yeah, yeah.
Alex, because
Okay.
that is a very much a financial move, and that sort of leads us through this whole almost era of Inter Miami with Pizarro, with Pellegrini, with Lewis Morgan, and finally now with Julian Carranza, who was traded for a second round pick that not very ceremoniously, I would say, in MLS. A second round pick typically does not make your roster. So traded to Philadelphia Union, and I, you know, Carranza's a weird case study in scouting and in what he could be. Uh, Always showed the physical tools. To me, always had the possibility to be something, but never was the something. And so I guess I just wonder, like, giving him up for a second round pick, this is no offense to anybody, but that's basically giving him up for free. It does save Inter Miami a lot of money, which is important when we're talking about the sanctions. But that's a sanctions move. The Lewis thing is sort of, how do we balance getting bang for our buck? The Pizarro thing is, oh well, this was a locker room issue. The Carranza thing is just strictly by the book financials. And so I guess I just wonder what you guys think about that. Is like that was the first one to me. That was the first domino to fall for me that said, hey, if the sanctions weren't here, he's probably back, but the sanctions are here, so get this money off the books.
Yeah, I you kind of hit the nail on the head with the Carranza. It's a tongue twister because I don't really know what to say about him. Like it was the physical tools, like you said, are there. It just never came to be, and the fact that they were spending so much money on just flat out potential and nothing on the field is not good enough, especially going into this sanction time in the next 2 seasons. You absolutely could not have had that on the books, and it is 1,000,000% a sanctioned move. If the sanctions weren't here, do I think Carranza would still be here? I'm not totally sure. Is that a project they're looking to ride out? You don't really know, because the potential for Miami to have more money is all lost with the sanctions. And if they had the more money, can they keep on risking to find the potential and bring it out of Carranza? Maybe that would have been an option, yes, with Higuain's contract running out at the end of the season. So there are questions to be asked there, but obviously it's not the reality of the situation. And I actually want to touch on this move, not from just Miami's perspective, but from Philadelphia's perspective. Look, they're not a team that spends a ton of money on big money players. They don't, and they like to build through the academy, and they bring in all these young players from their academy, which they do so well at. Brendan Aronson, for example, and his younger brother, both coming from the academy. I mean, they don't spend the money like they don't spend Carranza money. And now that they're getting this guy just on a loan, just to see how it goes, with an option to buy, just to see how it goes while his contract's either running out this year or at the end of the next season, it's a very low risk, high possible ceiling move for Philadelphia. And if it ends up working out, Miami fans, don't get upset, because we know that, it did not work here. If it works in Philadelphia, I quite honestly wouldn't be surprised. However, I'm not going to put my money on. I'm not going to bet that it does happen. I just think that for Philadelphia, this is a move that showed, you know what, we're willing to take the risk on a young guy with a ton of potential who, has had one really good game in MLS back in the MLS's back tournament, and that's about it. But I think that from Philadelphia's standpoint, this is a very quality move, and I think that maybe they don't end up happy with him, but at the end of the day, is it really going to hurt them? Because they're going to stick to their own philosophy, and they're going to stick building through the academy. If it doesn't work, then Carranza's on the bench, and it's just simple as that. And it's not like they were going to use that money elsewhere, I don't think. So good luck to Carranza. Good luck to Philly. Hopefully it does work out for you guys, but I don't think that Miami's really going to be missing Julian and the $750,000+ they were spending on his salary and the transfer fee as well.
Yeah, and I think with Carranza, a change of scenery can do him some good. Sometimes it just takes a player moving clubs to unlock their full potential. So, if he doesn't, if he didn't perform for Inter Miami, if he goes up to Philly and, does well there, you can't really, blame the guy. So he does have talent, but, it just didn't really work out for him in Miami.
Guys, let's move on. The last major name that has sort of been linked right now, LGP heading to Argentina to River Plate, as rumor would suggest. Nothing definitive yet. There was always sort of the feeling that one of LGP or Figal was going to leave, not both, maybe one. So this would maybe indicate that LGP is the guy that's heading back to Argentina. Um, I liked his play. I thought that it was a good option to keep him. A little disappointed to see. I think he's a very talented, especially specifically MLS player. We'll see what the haul is for him. He's obviously also, as we talk about the sanctions, taking up some general allocation money, so that would be lifted off of the books. Uh, but the transfer fee would not necessarily affect that as much as some of the other moves that have been made inter MLS or intra MLS as they go. Just what LGP has done, what hole does that create? We're hoping that Aime Mabika winds up being that sort of. Christian McCoon had a really great season last year. Figal has been able to play that sort of right center back at times. So just what LGP's loss or transfer would mean for the club in 2022.
I think us having to speculate, for a long time this season, we've done it multiple times, having to speculate that one of LGP or Figal was going to leave, always had that was the sanctions in the back of our mind saying, what, one of these big money guys have to get off the books, and you can't be spending money on 28 and 29-year-old center backs who are making all of that allocation money outside of the budget cap. So I think that we knew that one of these things were going to happen. I personally, I don't know about you guys, I was not expecting it to be LGP. And I know that there are those ties to Argentina for him, but there were also we did a transfer talk video over on our YouTube channel earlier on in 2021 about Figal to Tigres, and that was a huge thing that came out and was even touched on, I think, by the Miami Herald too. So there was rumors going on, about Figal for the most part. And now that these LGP ones have come up, I believe, I don't know if you guys were on my side or not, but I was an advocate to keep Figal and get rid of LGP if I had my choice, just because he's got the year and a half advantage. He's making a little bit more money. And LGP also set the record high MLS yellow cards in a single season. And, losing him throughout those times, not that Figal doesn't pick up his yellow cards, uh, but both of them have very similar play styles. I think that LGP is a lot more of a leader than Figal is. But at the same time, I don't think that Figal needs to be a leader in that back line like right now. I think that there's, a guy in Gregory or somebody else that they bring in to play next to Gregory. They got in Gene Mota. There are guys that can lead this team. LGP would have been that leader. However, I think that there are other leaders on the team that can fill in that void that LGP would, be leaving with. And I'm not happy that I had to see one of LGP or Figal leave, but I am happy that it has had to happen, and it is LGP over Figal. But I don't know if you guys are with me on that or not. I can't really remember, so tell me.
Uh,
I was in LGP camp. Yeah, I was
Okay.
in the LGP
mm,
camp. And that was strictly because I thought that they needed that number, that like center back that was really going to be there. And Figal was sort of going back and forth, and we couldn't really figure out where he was. And there was the rumor that he was leaving. But I totally understand that point, and from a financial standpoint, it makes sense as well.
How quickly can we trust McCoon to be that that center back?
Well, my worry is that McCoon is sort of like a left back that is playing as a left center back, and Figal is like a right back that's sort of playing as a right center back, and who's going to be the man in the middle that's going to hold it together. Because I loved that three at the back that was being played last year, and they sort of both played well in that role, but there needs to be that one pivot. And so you're asking a lot of Mabika right off the bat if he's going to be the guy who's right in the middle playing that role.
No worries. Kelvin Leardom did it against Atlanta, Ian. We can just bring him.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I will say that okay, so I do think that getting rid of LGP is a good thing. He was taking up a lot of money, and I've done tactical threads on Miami's many defensive mistakes last season, and there were a couple times where LGP was just beaten off to the dribble. He wasn't quick enough to get back. He misjudged the flight of a ball, above his head, and he'll miss a header. He'll pick up a stupid yellow card. He'll I don't know if you guys remember, but the NYCFC game. One of the goals was directly because he tried to play a ball through, and it didn't reach its intended target, and I think it was Castellanos or someone picked it up, and they ended up scoring. That's not to say that Figal isn't mistake prone, but LGP, we've seen it so many times, him just get caught out of position, needless yellow cards, and he's not quick enough to get back. And while I do believe he is a fantastic defender, and playing in that back three did hide a lot of those weaknesses with pace and whatnot, I think just solely because LGP is older, he's on a lot more money. Figal is younger and he does have a higher upside. And plus, I think they got rid of LGP solely because Christian McCoon took that jump and was good as he was last season. I think they felt comfortable enough getting rid of someone like LGB because McCoon was so good, and he's on a significantly lower money. And we know that, watching Christian, he is a starter. It's just really who's going to start next to him next season. Figal, Mabika, there's Ian Frey, Shawcross is still up in the air. They've been linked to other center backs, but right now I think this LGP move was solely because McCoon progressed so well that they felt comfortable enough to saying, okay, McCoon can be that guy for us heading into the future. Now with to Ian's point about that back three, I don't know if you guys were listening or whatnot, but I do believe Neville did say a couple of times that he was trying to like transition back to a back four. I'm sure they'll play a back three depending on the team, but um, that flat back four, I think, we'll talk about the incoming players. They specifically they're bringing in players to play either a 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1. So yeah, it's been an interesting off season so far. It's not over, but outgoings like LGP, it gives a pretty big indication to where this roster and how this roster is going to shape up come February 26th.
And guys, like I don't think that they're necessarily done with their business of leaving, and that's something that we'll keep an eye out on as we go through, as the transfer market starts to pick up as we start 2022. But I want to talk about who's coming in. The team did sign real fast Victor Uoa. They declined the contract and then re-signed him to a different deal. We'll see what the numbers are on that. But the big one so far, Jean Mota from Santos in Brazil, signed until 2024, and definitely set the tone for a lot of the other moves that we're going to get into in a sec on everything that they are about to do. A lot quicker of a pace, a lot more aggressive of a like just the pacier action. They want to play more on the floor, less of those diagonal balls that we talked so much about last year. More on the ground, more quick, more one touch and turn, more go, more width. Let's progress. And he really started to set the tone. I was impressed with watching him in the Brazilian league. I have a good buddy who is a Gremio fan, so I get to watch him every now and then. So I got to watch him, and a very very quick and Brazilian tiki taka sort of style, Alex, that I think is indicative of a lot of the players that they've started to bring in.
Yeah, John Mata, I know I did a tactical breakdown on him, and I know Santos fans were kind of jumping on me for saying, "Oh, he's bad, yada yada." But like I said earlier about Carranza, sometimes players just need to change the scenery to fulfill their full potential. Now with John Mata, this move is directly because Matuidi has just we've talked about it so many times on this show. Matuidi is just, he's getting older and he's regressing. So bringing in another left-footed center midfielder who can play as a left back, if need be, but he is a central midfielder by trade. It shows that versatility that Inter Miami likes in players. Look at guys like Joel who could play pretty much anywhere you ask him. Inter Miami love guys like that. So bringing in Jean Mata to play as alongside Gregory in a double pivot or a midfield three, it gives Miami more speed, more mobility. Better vision in Mota, and I think he'll slot in seamlessly. A lot of guys who come from the Brazilian league to MLS, well, of course it takes them a while to transition, but most of the time they end up doing well. So yeah, it's a good signing, and it's a signing that it has Chris Henderson written all over it. He loves those guys who are low, low, you know who can play above their salary level. Basically, he loves finding those diamonds in the rough that maybe don't get the most attention, but they have a high upside. So yeah, like you said, all the acquisitions so far, they've been um pretty indicative of what sort of playing style that Inter Miami will play out on the pitch going to next season. You have guys like Ariel Lassiter, who's a super pacey winger. I believe.
Before we get into that, I
Oh
wanted
yeah,
to quickly before we
getting a
get
bit
into that,
eager
'cause
there.
I want to
Yeah.
go there. But before we do, I wanted to ask you, how well do you think he fits with Gregory?
Well, they're both Brazilian, and well, I know that's not the only thing, but I do believe them, Gregory and Mota. They've been friends for a bit, so and that should work together. But as far as playing styles go, Mota is definitely a guy that loves to have a shot on goal. He loves to get up there. He loves to score. He loves to distribute, and him being that box to box guy alongside Gregory, who is more of a defensive minded, screening that back four, making sure no attackers get past. It could be a really good complementary duo in that regard. So you got that pure box to box central midfielder, and you got that pure destroyer DM and Gregory. And should Neville plays cards correctly, this could be a very dominant duo in MLS if they manage to get the tactics right.
I was just going to bring up this point about Gregory. When I saw his tape coming from Bahia, he to me was what we are now saying about Gene Mota, who's someone who likes to go forward, get a shot on goal from time to time. But that was because there was probably another midfielder back in Brazil with him that could cover him. Matuidi was never that guy. Ulloa was never that guy, and Gregory was, delegated these defensive duties. And not that he isn't a great defender. We saw the number of pressures he made this year. I think he was up for the most in MLS, the tackles, the interceptions, everything like that. An amazing defender. But something about this Gene Mota signing to me is saying that, you know what? Phil Neville wants a more versatile midfield, another guy that he can rely on if the ball exactly. That's the exact hand movement that explains what I'm trying to say perfectly. If Gregory wants to go up, Gene Mota can you have a little reliability because I think there was times where he played left back down in Brazil as well, so he has a defensive mindset to be a cover guy. Be a cover guy for a midfielder who wants to go forward in a double pivot. I think that it could work out really well. I'm just hoping. I think that Gregory was more of a splash signing that everybody knew was going to be good. This one is all right. We have the potential. Let's see if it works out. I think that you know if Gene Mota isn't a starter right off the bat, that's okay. If he comes into his own, that's a good thing. I think they should give him time. But for right now, looking at the other midfield, players for Inter Miami, it looks like Gene Mota is the guy. They just need to get somebody in behind him that if he does have these let's hope not Matuidi moments where things go out of hand, we need some depth in the midfield.
My question is that too easy to game plan against? I know I'm getting ahead of myself on this, but like we know what the like, when you see Mota and Gregory together, like their style of play, we all know what this is good, like how this is gonna go and what this is. Is it too simple? Is it too easy for MLS teams around the league to just go, "Hey, we know how these guys are gonna play."
Uh,
Hmm.
I mean, I would say this: a really good double pivot in the midfield with maybe a number 10 playing just above them could be very hard to game plan against, even if you know what's coming. I think that if they bring in a third midfielder that actually unlocks the offense like the way they want it to be unlocked, you have multiple points of attack. You have the speedy wingers on the wing. You have the number 10 who can create and play make for a guy like Gonzalo Higuain, and you have the sometimes coming up midfielder who is a box to box guy. I think that if you have multiple points of attack and not like just a direct style that we saw last year, where it was basically let's send diagonal balls, try and switch to play, things like that, it becomes harder to plan against when you have multiple points of entry onto goal. And I'm not saying that Gene Mota is the answer to all of Inter Miami's offensive problems, but I think he's starting to solve some of the problems that they've had in the last two seasons and say, look, we need to have a balance for our front, five players in order to get better attempts on goal.
I think with a 4-2-3-1, if that's what Inter Miami is going to play, I think that's a formation where you want to have overloads on certain sides when you're attacking the opposition. So let's say Miami's attacking down that right hand side, and Gregory's playing that right hand side. Basically, the left side of that formation will basically tuck and be that defensive cover should the opposition get on a break. So let's say, the right hand side, they're trying to, penetrate that final line of the opposition. They're trying to break quickly. That's something where they can go, and the left half of the formation stays. So that would be Jean Mata, Kieran Gibbs, McCoon playing on that left hand side. On the right hand side, I don't know who's going to start at right wing. Higuain up top. Whoever the number 10 is, and the right back, whoever's going to start there, they can go up. Play quickly, and they could still have that defensive shape with Jean Mata and Gregory. You have two mobile double pivots who can play that shift of it's basically soccer 101. You stay, I go. I stay, you go. So it could be very balanced if played correctly. But as we saw with Inter Miami in the periods last season, they just didn't have the personnel to have that balance because, like I said, Matuidi regressing, not quick enough. LGP out of position, just Pizarro playing as a striker instead of a creative number 10. They didn't really have that balance. So as the offseason continues and they bring in more players that fit that sort of style, I think it'll be up to Neville to tweak the tactics just according to the team and to the opposition and whatnot. And I think we'll see a far better a far better balanced squad than we did all of 2021.
Guys, let's talk about the other acquisitions. Ariel Lassiter from Houston Dynamo for 100K in general allocation money. Mo Adams from Atlanta United for Dylan Castanera. Bryce Duke as well, and very quick, pacey guy from LAFC that they all brought in. There seems to be a growing theme that Neville is doing. Last year, we talked about the width and the spacing that they wanted to have, especially when implementing that three at the back that was happening towards that run in the middle part of the year. This seems to be more of a traditional 4-2-3-1 with guys that are going to angle you and go directly at you, and with quickness, with pace, with speed, that really wants to be solidified at the back, strong in the midfield, in that middle third, like you said, Austin, and then those other angles going directly towards goal with the spine. Phil talked about that at times last year when he was a little frustrated with the team's play. It seems like he's sort of starting to get players in the style of what he wants to do. So let's just talk for a minute. Any one of those three moves stand out to you? Personally, I like the Bryce move. I loved his play last year. Thought he played very well. And I like that it's a little bit more of added depth. We had a lot of issues that we talked about last year with injuries and suspensions and hardships and call ups and this and that and the other. Any of those or all of those that stick out to you?
Yeah, I don't necessarily have much to say on these three guys individually. I do have to do a little bit more research, but what, like you were saying, and what it does tell me is that Miami and Phil Neville are going to want a certain style, and depth is really important in terms of implementing a style, because if the injuries and suspensions and international breaks, all this stuff comes into play during any time during the season, you have to have guys that are able to fill the role and not have to switch your formation based on your personnel. If you have guys that are going to fit your personnel from player number 1 to player number 23, you can just plug and play, plug and play, plug and play. We're not going to see shifting starting 11s from time to time like we did all of 2020 and all of 2021. I think consistency is going to be really key for Miami in 2022. If they keep on bringing in guys like the Lassiters and the Adams and the Dukes, who are quick and versatile players, and you can all fit them into the same style that you're trying to build here in South Florida, that could be a key to winning matches down the stretch and also early on.
And I think that Phil, I don't know this, I haven't talked to him about this, but I think that he was annoyed by the rules, like learning the rules of MLS and being able to have players when all of that was going and they were struggling to just get 16 players onto the field. I think that he was a little. You could kind of see it on his face that he was getting a little frustrated that all of this was happening. So I think that they're important moves for that should that happen next year.
Yeah, I like the Bryce Duke move as well. I think he's a really talented young player. He's quick. He can play. On the wing and central midfield. He's excellent at pressuring. He's just he'll tackle almost anything, and he's the type of guy that could maybe slot in at the 10. Should Inter Miami have suspension trouble or whatnot. And I will like to say I want to point out Mo Adams. For one, he is a guy that can play as right back, can play as a central midfielder and a DM, and that's a common theme with Inter Miami. They love these versatile players that can play in multiple positions. So look, Jean Mota, Mo Adams. Um, I'm sure they'll bring in more, but because we saw last
Even
season, just
Uoa, right? They're
yeah,
all sort of similar
yeah,
type of like Swiss Army knife players.
yeah, and that's important to have in MLS where travel, heat, cold, just, what I think Inter Miami, they're going to play away to Seattle for the first time. I think it's going to be such like a long journey. Of course, they're going to need some help and depth. And, that's how you win in MLS. You win by having, good, backup players. It's such physically unforgiving league that you have to rely on, that second guy up, that third guy up, because Gregory's not going to be able to play every game. Jean Motta's not going to be able to play every game. Christian McCoon, he'll get called up to Venezuela. He won't be able to play every game. So you need those guys like the Mo Adams and the Lassiters and the Bryce Dukes to fill in when your starters aren't always available.
Guys, I want to move on to the rest of free agency because, like Alex, you said, Phil probably wants his roster at least not necessarily set, but at least more of an indication of what this roster is going to look like by January 17th or January 16th. And this was one of the best free agent classes in MLS history. MLS free agency is very new to the league. Uh, it varied from year to year. This is now a little more of a formality of a process that it goes through now. But Maxi Morales re-signs with New York City. Jonathan Dos Santos was available. He's off the market. So some of the big name guys are starting to get pulled. There's still some big names out there. Is there any name that sort of jumped out to you to say, hey, this would make a lot of sense for Inter Miami to have? Like, I could really see this person, maybe not necessarily as a starter, but like a Fernando Adi who could make an impact on the team next year in terms of depth. Is there any sort of guy that you guys saw?
I think this is a loaded question because there are tons of guys in MLS who are a bit journeyman, and they can fill it in certain spots, but um I think Kakuta Mane from I don't know what was the last team he was on. I think it was Austin FC.
I think it was
Yeah,
Austin, yeah,
yeah.
from Minnesota,
So
yeah.
is he a forward winger? He could come off the bench and provide that burst of speed in the last 20 minutes of games. That could be helpful for Inter Miami. Should if they're deadlocked 0-0 or they need a goal, they can bring on someone like Kakuta, and he could go and wreak havoc. And I would have to double check his salary, but I don't think he was making that much either. So I think that would be a good shout for Inter Miami. Those are a lot of good options for them. I do think that we touched on it earlier in the pod, but I would like for them to get another central midfielder. I do think Gregory is prone to yellow cards, and I just the idea of Matuidi, I don't know. I would just feel more comfortable with them getting another DM or central midfielder. It could be a young DM like a Bryce Duke or or what have you. But they should go after another central midfielder. I know Chris Henderson is scouring not only the globe but also other MLS teams to see who can fit into that. But yeah, Kakuta Mane he would definitely be my pick, and I do think that they need another winger. I don't know if that's through the draft, free agency, or they're going to bring someone in, but there have been some reports about ex-TFC player Erickson Gallardo, who didn't really he didn't really pan out for them. He needs a change of scenery. He's also one of those quick wingers like Ariel Lassiter, so that could be another option for Inter Miami over there too.
I'm not looking too far outside of Miami for this free agent thing. I'm looking right at Breck Shea, and I know that MLS I think listed him as Dane Shea. If anybody saw the list, but no, I'm genuinely looking at Breck Shea, and I don't mean to be like this funny meme guy about Breck Shea. I think that there were times last year and in 2020 where he came and was that depth piece that we were talking about, and he's also that versatile guy that can play multiple positions and do multiple things on the field that Phil Neville may want on the left side of the pitch if things are to go wrong. I'm not saying that Breck Shea should be a starter. I'm not saying that Breck Shea should get more than, let's say, 500 minutes. But Breck Shea is a guy that you can rely on at any point in the season, it seems like, and he's been healthy for a lot of the time since coming back from his injury after signing for Fort Lauderdale. He's been healthy and available and ready, and that's like the number one key to being an MLS player is being available. And Breck Shea's available. I think that he would be extremely cheap. He might not even break the top 20 in terms of salary if you're really thinking about it, so it wouldn't even go towards the budget. For me, Breck Shea is a guy I think that they should bring back because he can provide depth in ways that a lot of players can't necessarily. He provides stability, he provides reliability, and I think for him being a probable cheap player, it's a really good option for Miami to look at. And no, don't look too far outside of it because I know you need better starters. I know you need to improve that starting 11. But there's a guy that and there's a guy that a lot of fans love around the league, especially now in Miami, in Breck Shea. And I know that he's set up here with his family. His kids are going to school here, everything like that. I'm sure he'd want the move as well. And I think that you'd be able to get a bargain for him.
Alex, let's talk real fast. MLS Super Draft coming up. Inter Miami has the ninth overall pick. An MLS mock draft came out earlier this week. Said Sofiane Jafal, the midfielder, like you mentioned, they were looking for from Oregon State. Probably the consensus that I would probably think that's just like a kind of a smart pick. I like Farai Muatu from Michigan State, a very tall or a very like quick forward that wants to kind of get in that like Marcus Rashford type sort of player. I think if Oseni Buddha falls to them, then that's a dream scenario. I wonder how his combine goes. We sort of don't know a lot of this stuff with COVID protocols like we normally do, and with the combine not being down here in South Florida, it used to be in Fort Lauderdale. So we don't normally get to see these guys as much anymore. I would love Buddha personally. He would be if Inter Miami had the number one pick, he would be my guy. But we'll see. There's talk that he might be falling down the draft board. Is there any name of those or any others that jump off the list for you?
Yeah, I think Miami shouldn't draft the best player available that falls to them. I think they should go after a need. So, like you said, Oseni Buddha, I think he's a great talent. Winger out of Stanford. I think he'd be a good pick. I don't know if he'll fall that far. I don't know. The draft is so unpredictable. You never know what you're gonna get. But I do like the Sophia and Jafal move. I think I was watching some of his clips earlier, and I think he he looks the most like plug and play pro ready out of all of these guys. I think if he's like he is the prototypical number 10. He can score, he can set up, he's very crafty, he's good on the ball. Um that being said, I do believe he'll take up an international roster spot, but I do think between Carranza leaving and Pizarro, I don't know if that opens up one, or maybe they'll have to trade for one, but
It
who
doesn't
knows.
really
But
matter though. They don't
yeah.
they don't have a lot. It doesn't really matter.
Okay, so yeah, like Default, I think he'd be a great pick. I think Miami should either a central midfielder or a winger, because I don't know, I don't know if Josh Penn is coming back. They really whiffed on him. They drafted him what, number 9 last year, or number 8, and he just didn't get on at all. And it's unfortunate because he does have some talent, but it just didn't work out really. But yeah, either Miami should go after a winger or a central midfielder. I would be okay with either Jafal or Buddha because they're both great players. But like you said, Ian, this draft is so unpredictable. People can fall. People can, maybe not be there when Miami picks at 9. So I'm really excited for this draft. I know people love to throw it away, but you can find diamonds in the rough in this draft. I know. Look at Jack Mayer from, was it 2 years ago? He's now a starter for Nashville. Daryl DK was the most famous one. He just recently left to West Brom. Henry Kessler, I believe he was drafted a couple years ago, and he's a mainstay for the Revs. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting, and yeah, I'm just intrigued to see who Miami picks because I do think they'll take a position of need and not necessarily the best player that's available for them.
Yeah, I want to touch on like kind of Miami's draft history really quick because going into this season, I think things definitely have to change. We took Robbie Robinson at number 1 overall, and we know where that has led us at the end of 2021, going into 2022. You took Dylan Nealis, who you traded away to Nashville for allocation money, and then in last year's draft, you had Josh Penn at number 9, right? You also had Mabika down, I think 26 was the number, if I'm not mistaken, or 24, so around that in
Yeah,
the mid
around there.
20s. And that was the guy that now we are, high. He's getting into the first team, and it looks like he's going to get significant minutes in 2022. But they also traded for the number 10 pick in that first 2020 draft in Patrick Segrist, and that didn't work out, much like Josh Penn didn't work out. They went on the same path after joining Miami, went out on loan to a USL Championship side, and just didn't impress enough for Neville to try and get them to come back. So I I don't know if you're necessarily looking for plug and play right now, but I think if you are, a player who does get drafted by Inter Miami, that's probably what they're looking for. They're looking for plug and play and ready to play guys because there's not much time to work on experiments for 20 and 21-year-olds. They're looking at the academy for those kinds of experiments, and they're not looking at that draft prospects for those kinds of experiments. So I'm thinking that they need a plug and play player. They'll go for a plug and play player, and they're not necessarily going for the experiment types. And hopefully they get somebody, whether it's at number 9 or later. Oh, well, they traded away, I guess, the second round pick. But if they acquire anything or something, that you're just hoping that it can be a guy like Mabika, who we found and can plug in a year later after being drafted.
Guys,
Yeah,
we've talked players for nearly an hour. Let's talk games. We have a schedule and how exciting it's going to be. Just going to read some news and notes from it. Very exciting that this year only 2 midweek matchups, and that's really exciting. 11 Saturday matchups at home, 4 Sunday matchups at home. That's just in the home schedule that they're going to have. Again, the way that the MLS schedule works is you're going to play home and away against the other 13 Eastern Conference teams, and then you're going to play 4 home games and 4 away games against 8 of the 14 Western Conference teams. Those teams are going to be Austin, Dallas, Houston, LAFC, Minnesota for the first time, Portland again is going to make their first trip to South Florida, Earthquakes for the first time, and the furthest trip that Inter Miami will have made 3,000 miles away to Seattle Sounders. Inter Miami has 7 matchups on national television, 3 on ESPN, 1 on ESPN2, 1 on FS1, 1 on Univision, and 1 on Unimas. So definitely, having that many national games, we're accustomed to it. Love our local broadcasters as well. But it'll be an exciting opportunity to get that national platform that they'll have. The thing that really stuck out to me was the lack of midweek games. That this past year wound up being a very difficult challenge. Those multiple 3-game weeks where you had a Sunday game, a Wednesday game, a Saturday game. It happened, I think, 2 or 3 times throughout the course of the week. No longer. Really a much more normal calendar with the upcoming World Cup in Qatar. I think that'll be helpful for the U.S. men's national team as well. Just like a little side note to insert in on that. But your highlights from the schedule that you saw and the game that you're most looking forward to.
Actually, this one might surprise you a little bit, but I am so excited to get out to San Jose. That is a place that I've never been before. I would say Seattle, but I was in the Pacific Northwest for the Portland game, and I look at these schedules, and just personally, the fan inside of me looks for one really good away trip, and Seattle would be the one if it didn't fall on Easter weekend. But the San Jose one in August, yes, it might be a little hot, but getting to go to the Bay Area around that time, I think would be a really good trip for any fans that want to make it out, but also San Jose, a team that you mentioned we have not played before. I believe Wondolowski retired, so we wouldn't get to see him. But they are an enticing team. Cade Cowell, for one, is a player that I look for young players I like to watch for, especially on the U.S. men's national team radar. So I'm looking forward to the away trip to San Jose personally.
Yeah, I'd have to say Austin away and Charlotte away. I think those are, of course, in Charlotte's case, they're the newest expansion side. North Carolina, it's a great state. I've been there multiple times. I have family up there. Maybe I can get to that game. Who knows? But yeah, I'm really looking forward to Charlotte away. I know every expansion team that has come after Inter Miami, I've been curious to see, how they've transitioned to the league. I know Inter Miami's launch was a bit of a mess, so I always compare them to Inter Miami and what Inter Miami could have done differently, what these teams have done differently. So Charlotte is one of them. Austin FC. I've been following them since their inception. They've got a really interesting squad. There's a couple players on there that I've talked about, and we've all talked about. Wanting to bring them here to Miami. Alex
Alex
Ring.
Ring.
Alex Ring. Yeah,
Not
Alex Ring
not
is
for
he's one
DP
of them.
money, not for DP
Oh,
money.
true. Austin did just sign him to a new DP contract, so not for DP money. John Gallagher is one of them, but I think he's happy there at Austin. But yeah, Austin FC and Charlotte, those are the two games I'm really looking forward to, and of course Seattle away. Seattle, it's always been. I think it's even before Inter Miami came into the league. I think I would automatically turn on Seattle matches because I just liked their soccer and their jerseys were cool. So I loved watching them, and of course the derby match against Orlando. Orlando have had a bunch of outgoings. DK's gone, Mueller's gone, Nani's gone, so they're gonna have to retool and maybe they'll be better, maybe they'll be weaker. We don't know, but the derby matches are always ones that the fans and writers and journalists that cover the team. It's always an exciting one because it's a natural rivalry there, and this year should definitely be intriguing. So, yeah.
Alex, you stole my 3 games. I had 3 games that I was going to talk about,
Did I
and you
really?
stole all 3 of them. Austin away, Charlotte as an expansion away, and we actually get Orlando away on a weekend.
Wow.
On
Oh my.
July 4th,
Oh.
the weekend after July 4th, that is a Saturday game. It was a Friday game this year. We had
Oh wow.
MLS is back. We had all of that nonsense. and we actually this year get a proper Saturday Orlando away game, and I am so unbelievably excited about that. The other thing that every single person listening to this podcast, every single person involved in this podcast is thrilled about. Guys, we have pink jerseys. It's happening. I feel like that meme. It's happening. Pink jerseys finally. I mean, just unbelievable. They haven't been released yet, to my knowledge, at least. I've been a little out of the loop, but it's been announced that the team's going to have pink kits this year, and I don't. I've never been so happy about a kit before. Alex, you texted me earlier today about Tottenham's kit because I'm a Tottenham fan as well, and their cool jerseys. But like, I, I was so excited. The fact that this team is finally going to be represented by its color, that the Herons will come out in pink. It's weird to just feel that way and want to express that, and just have that excitement. What was your initial thought when you heard that there was finally going to be pink kits in 2022?
Joy, it was just it was just long overdue. I don't know what they were thinking with going with this Heron white thing. I don't know. I know maybe they wanted to go like Beckham played for Real Madrid. Maybe they wanted to go with the royal white thing, but it's Miami. You needed to have that pink kit, and it's and not the clear pink that they had earlier in their like in 2022 they had this really clear pink that looked almost white on TV. No, this is going to be a darker pink that is very visibly pink, an all pink kit, and yeah, it was just a matter of time. It also, like I don't know if they're gonna pair it with like dark shorts or pink shorts, but we could have an all pink kit, with the shorts and socks too. So, instantly one of the more recognizable brands in MLS if that happens. But yeah, I was excited, and I even went looking for like Adidas templates. You know how they have like templates for jerseys. I was looking to see if they had like pink templates, but I couldn't really find anything. So yeah, it's definitely going to be a surprise. I don't know. We did see some, like heartbeats in the back, which could be an indication of the what do you call it, like the the details. But yeah, it's exciting, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that jersey launch.
Well, Austin, I have the practice pink kit because the practice one was always pink. So I have that one that I wear, but I just the fact that it's gonna be on like the pink and black, there's that chant, oh, pink and black, pink and black, black. The fans chant. The fact that's they're actually going to come out in the pink and black is so cool.
Yeah, I think that the fans deserve it. I honestly, and I think that the club recognized that the fans deserve something like this to happen. They've been calling for it. I'm not even going to say for 2 years, for longer than 2 years, because when the club was first announced, I thought that that was probably the idea that everybody was going to have was a pink home kit when the logo was announced. So I think the fans deserve it. I think we at the Heron outlet deserve it. And I know, I mean, we're all super excited about just a pink kit, which is crazy, just the home kit. But no, man, it's going to be awesome, hopefully, and it's going to be so recognizable, like you said, Alex. And I'm sure that that's something that is behind the idea. And you did mention that little heartbeat thing. I saw that that was a big like in all the branding and the marketing that they've been doing behind the kit. You see these little heartbeats, and they keep saying it's the heartbeat. The fans are the heartbeat of the club, and so I'm assuming there will be some kind of pattern. We know that they like to do those little tiny patterns inside the jersey. I believe, there was La Palma, right? And then there was also, I think in the initial two kits, there were the actual like interior logos printed all over the kit, like with the little two herons and the M or something. So maybe the heartbeat is the next thing. I think it could work well, especially with maybe black XBTO like outline. I know they got didn't they get a sleeve sponsor as well? Another like black print to put on there. So I think that this could be really, really, really slick. I hope they keep it pink and black. I'm sure they will keep it pink and then away to be black. And then they reverse the colors on both sides. So black with pink, pink with black. I think it could be awesome.
I'm so excited for it. Guys, let's before we go, just talk about a couple of international friendlies that are going to come to Drive Pink Stadium. Shout out to our producer Andres, who Colombia's taking on Honduras coming up on January 16th, upcoming, and I hope that he'll be wearing the tricolores, and I'll be at the Canada Guatemala game supporting my Azul y Blanco Guatemalans, and so just just international football coming to Drive Pink Stadium, always a good thing. Something that the community deserves. Something that we are always encouraging. The rich diversity of our South Florida community and the South Florida soccer community that we have, and the ability to just host these matchups. I think it's really a special thing for us.
Yeah, definitely agreed. And the first time I witnessed this was with the U.S. men's national team game that they had a while back, where they scored a ton of goals. But then after that, I was actually more enticed by the Gold Cup qualifying matches that they had there. And I went to both of the Haiti games, and the atmosphere in that stadium was just awesome. And I think that it could be like that for these two upcoming matches. And it wasn't even just about like the Haiti games, because they were playing 3 games in quick succession. So you saw fans leaving, a ton of fans leaving from the countries that were playing previously, a ton of fans coming in towards the end of matches for the next game coming, and the passion and the pride, the diversity that's here, it brings all that passion and pride to Drive Pink, to the soccer community in South Florida. I know that that's like something that Jorge Mas is huge on. So having these international friendlies is just showing that Jorge Mas does care, and hopefully, I mean, they can keep on doing things like this. But I'm sure the Colombia game and the Canada Guatemala game would be an awesome time. I'm hoping I get to go out, but we'll see.
Well, it's cool because they used to do those games at the old Orange Bowl, those Gold Cup games and the friendlies. They used to do it at the old Orange Bowl. Then they did it at FIU. And now the fact that Inter Miami at Drive Pink Stadium is able to host this, it's really an interesting way of connecting the club to the gateways of the Americas.
Yeah, and I think that's a fitting for Miami. It's pretty much the gateway to Central and South America. So yeah, there. I don't think there's any other better place in the United States to host these games than Drive Pink Stadium. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, and I know this is it's 4 years out, but the U.S. will be hosting our World Cup in 2026. So this is like a mini sort of primer 4 years on. Eventually 4 years from now, we're gonna have the biggest sporting event in the world, literally in our backyard. So World Cup fever. This year we have Qatar, and 4 years we've got the U.S. So, yeah, I'm just excited for international football to start coming back again. Consistently. I'm really excited for the U.S. and the World Cup, and yeah, these friendlies are just like a primer to all of that. So I'm super excited.
Well, guys, it is good to be back. Happy New Year, a World Cup year that we start and we will finish the year with, as we are very excited, but a lot of Inter Miami talk that we will have here on the Heron Outlet in the beginning or in the interim throughout this 2022 year. You can follow us on our YouTube channel. You can follow us on Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. And a lot of exciting stuff to come here in 2022. Happy New Year to both of you. For our producer Andres, she is Alex Winley, he is Austin Robillard, I am Ian Hest, and we will see you again this time next week.